Hello and a warm welcome to TBC News. Our top stories. Zanzibar to strengthen cooperation with Mozambique. To be buried in Mwanga next Tuesday. Good evening, I am Faiva Ngaga. You can also follow us live via our YouTube channel, TBC Online. Also, get all the latest news through our Instagram, Facebook, and X pages at TBC Online. President of Zanzibar and Chairman of the Revolutionary Council, Dr. Hussein Ali Mwinyi, reaffirms Zanzibar's commitment to strengthening economic cooperation and diplomacy with Mozambique for the mutual benefit of both nations. Dr. Mwinyi made the remarks during talks with President of Mozambique, Daniel Chapo, at the State House in Zanzibar. The discussions focused on strategic areas for collaboration, including the blue economy, oil and gas, deep-sea fishing, tourism and investment. Carol Maleo has more.
Mozambique and Tanzania share historic ties that date back to the liberation struggle led by the founding fathers of both nations. Decades later, the strong bond of friendship and diplomacy continues to be upheld by the current state leaders. As part of his visit to Tanzania, President Chapo traveled to Zanzibar, where he held talks with President Mwinyi. President Mwinyi congratulated him on his recent electoral victory, noting that the win further strengthens the cooperation and unity between the ruling party Chama cha Mapinduzi CCM and the Mozambique Frelimo Party.
Ujio wake hapa ni ishara ya uhusiano mzuri tuliokuwa nao baina nchi zetu mbili.
His visit is a clear sign of the strong and friendly relation between our two countries, and it will further strengthen the brotherly ties we share. We are pleased that President Daniel Chapo chose our country for his first official visit following his inauguration, just as he had promised last year. We congratulate the Frelimo Party on its victory in the recent general election, and we are deeply encouraged by the strong relation between Frelimo and our party, CCM.
On his part, President Daniel Chapo expressed Mozambique's firm commitment to enhancing its partnership with Zanzibar, emphasizing that his visit is a reflection of that commitment.
Saudar o meu irmão Hussein Ali Mwinyi.
Ningependa kuleta salamu za dhati kwa kaka yangu.
I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to President Hussein Ali Mwinyi and thank him for the warm welcome here in Zanzibar, as well as for the generosity shown to me and my delegation. I sincerely appreciate this visit and all the meaningful conversations we have had, including the discussions I had yesterday with the President of Tanzania, Her Excellency Samia Suluhu Hassan. Today, we made the decision to visit Zanzibar, and since our arrival at the airport, we have been warmly received by the Mozambican community here. We have felt truly at home. It has been raining since we arrived, and as we know, rain is a sign of blessings. This signifies that the spirits of the founding fathers of our nations, Tanzania, Zanzibar, and Mozambique, are pleased with us.
President Chapo concluded his 3-day visit to Tanzania today. During the visit, 2 memorandums of understanding and 4 agreements have been signed aimed at deepening bilateral cooperation. He also toured the Standard Gauge Railway SGR project and visited the Africa Liberation Heritage Center. Meanwhile, the First Lady of Mozambique visited Muhimbili National Hospital and the Maisha Bora Foundation, which is led by the First Lady of Zanzibar. A farewell celebration for President Chapo was held at the State House in Dar es Salaam, where President Samia Suluhu Hassan officially bid farewell to him and his delegation. She also promised to visit Mozambique later this year during the country's independence celebrations. Caroline Maleo, TBC News.
In other news, President Samia Suluhu Hassan has sent congratulatory message to Pope Leo XIV for his election as the new pope to lead the Catholic Church. On her congratulatory message posted on her social media platform, President Samia says on behalf of the government of Tanzania, she wishes him all the best in his service to the church and world at large. Speaking the day after he was elected as the 267th Pope and the first United States leader of the church, he says he had been elected to be a faithful administrator of a church that will act as a beacon that illuminates the dark nights of the world. The ascension of Robert Francis Prevost has been celebrated by the world's 1.4 billion Catholics with joyous outbursts in his U.S. homeland and in Peru, where he served for 20 years. Let's have a look at other stories now. The second Vice President of Zanzibar, Hemed Suleiman Abdullah, has urged stakeholders to support government initiatives by investing in and embracing digital transformation with a strong emphasis on inclusivity in technology, education, and artificial intelligence. He made the remarks in Dar es Salaam during his closing address at the 18th E-Learning Africa International Conference.
We are in a unique position to leapfrog traditional models of development. Let us seize this moment to collaborate, innovate, and accelerate the digital revolution in education, ensuring that African youth are equipped with the skill to thrive in 21st centuries. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, the recommendation emerging from this conference are crucial for the sustainable development of our nation. I hope all countries will work diligently to implement this recommendation.
Conference participants expressed their gratitude for the platform, which enabled them to showcase their innovations and services. Many noted that the experience strengthened their optimism for a brighter digital future in Tanzania and across the African continent in the education sector.
Opportunity E-Learning Africa has brought potential opportunities to our local innovators and companies, and we are expecting through the TBI incubation programs, we are going to support a lot of innovators in e-learning, and we are expecting to change or to impact the education sector in our country.
In this exhibition, it's very vital for Tanzania Post Corporation to cooperate or to join in this exhibition because from our core function of a corporation, we have provided services which is very vital to support on Tanzanian economy and the society in a whole.
The big takeaway that I take from this very wonderful experience is that together we can make Africa the best version, and also together we can promote self-education. We also can promote digital education for women around the country and around the world.
Now, to discuss more about e-learning in the African context, we have invited the Minister of Information and Digitalization and Government Chief Spokesperson of Malawi, Moses Kumkuyu, who has been one of the participants of the e-Learning Africa International Conference. Minister Moses, welcome to TVC.
Thank you very much.
So to start off, how ready is Africa with regards to embracing e-learning, especially in rural areas?
No, Africa is making progress now in its pursuit to become ready for e-learning. Of course, the rural areas that you have mentioned are where we do have significant challenges, but the interest that is there now in the investment in broadband infrastructure, the political will that is being displayed by African leaders, but also the hunger for developing skills in e-learning aiding platforms is indicative of how Africa is moving towards being ready. But the challenges remain. Significant ones will be connectivity to the rural areas. There is still minimal connectivity in the rural areas, and access to gadgets is still a problem, because if there is no connectivity and there are no gadgets and there is no relevant curriculum aligned the kind of localized content which is easy to understand by the learners, then the whole talk about e-learning Africa will be a mere talk show. We need to make sure that we're not talking about e-learning in Africa. We look at the young man that is in the remotest part of Tanzania, the remotest part of Malawi, the remotest part of Zambia, or wherever in Africa. That young man has to be reached through connectivity. That young man must be able to access devices, and that young man must be able to access content that is localized, that is developed in a manner that aligns with the curriculum of that particular country. Then we'll say we are ready as Africa.
What strategies should African countries employ? Because in comparison to other parts of the world, we're still sort of behind. What strategies do you think?
You know, when we skate around the main issues, then we do not really hit the nail on the head. The issues that I mentioned as barriers of our efforts to embrace e-learning completely, as I did say, if there is no connectivity, then we cannot talk about e-learning. So we have to make sure that we invest massively in connecting to the rural masses through the last mile connectivity. We have to make sure that we call for subsidies towards the acquisition of gadgets. If we put subsidies or we take away some taxes that make the cost of devices expensive, then we should be able to have many people access the gadgets. And if we bring content that is not local, even if one goes, accesses e-learning, but the content that is there is not easy for the young man from my home village to understand, then e-learning is not for that young man. Good thing is there is now digital learning policy reforms being embraced by many countries. As I did say, there is political will. So on that one, we are okay. But on the other issues that really hinder the penetration of e-learning, we have to decisively deal with those. I'll give an example. Africa has 16 countries that are landlocked. We call them land-linked in some cases. If these countries are not given access to the undersea cables from where broadband comes from, then definitely with the conversation about e-learning Africa is Africa minus those 16 countries. So the sea-facing countries that have access to the undersea cables must give access to the land-linked countries. You talk of, as I did say, 16 countries. All those countries with over 300 million people, you cannot leave them from this trend. If we leave them, then we're not talking about e-learning Africa. We're talking about e-learning some countries in Africa.
So there comes the issue of collaboration and partnerships amongst African countries. What do you think the situation is currently with regards to partnership in e-learning?
Countries are now fostering relationships. I'll give an example, a very good example of Malawi and Tanzania, of course. We have what we're calling the diplomatic data corridors, which is an arrangement that enables us to get broadband capacity from Dar es Salaam all the way to Malawi through TTCL agreement with ESCOM in Malawi. If these partnerships could be all over, that will give an entry of, or rather access of broadband into the countries that are land-linked. Because if these countries, as I did say, are left out, then definitely we are not having them in the conversation. This conversation must start from the top. We are thankful, for example, in the case that I gave, to the leadership of Her Excellency Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan and His Excellency Dr. Lazarus Chakwera, President of Malawi, because they have been directly involved in this process of ensuring that Malawi gets broadband from Tanzania, and would want to believe that if the same was done for other countries that are also land-linked or land-locked countries, then definitely those would be the kind of partnerships that we need. Secondly, the private sector is doing very good in developing content, but that has to be brought to the table where government policymakers are also involved. They embrace that and becomes government's projects. And this kind of a conversation should not be left to private players alone. Leaders at regional and global levels must be discussing this and then scale it down to the lower levels where the private sector can also catch it and move with it. In that way, that collaboration will ensure a win for the rural masses at the end of the day.
As we're winding up, paint us a picture of how the situation is in Malawi for somebody who is watching and may not have a picture of how it's doing in Malawi.
Malawi is a very shining example. We are making steady progress towards being ready for e-learning. We have laid the foundations. As I am talking now, Malawi has over 30 public spaces where we have put free Wi-Fi. Malawi is putting ICT labs in all the secondary schools. Under the Digital Malawi Phase 2, we're expecting to connect 2,000 secondary schools. That's essentially connecting all the secondary schools, giving them free Wi-Fi and ICT infrastructure in the schools. We are looking at off-grid power sources to make sure that those that are in the remote are also connected. And over 500 government institutions have been connected. We're looking at connecting 700 more to make it 1,200. This is making the civil servant digital friendly and the deliverance of service to the public also made easy. So that's the picture of Malawi that I can give you. We are a country that is landlocked but connected and making all these strides. This is aligned to the Malawi 2063 agenda and also our other national aspirations.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister.
You're welcome.
That was the Minister of Information of Malawi, Mr. Moses Kumkuyu, speaking with me live in the studio. In other news, the Permanent Secretary of Ministry of Information, Culture, Arts and Sports and Chief Government Spokesperson Gerson Msigwa says the burial ceremony of the retired Vice President and Prime Minister Cleopa Msuya will be held on Tuesday, May 13th in Mwanga District, Kilimanjaro region. Addressing a press conference in Dar es Salaam earlier today, Msigwa says that the President Samia Suluhu Hassan will lead Tanzanians in a prayer service for the late Cleopa Msuya, which will be held at Karimjee grounds in Dar es Salaam the day after tomorrow on the 11th of May.
Ufirishaji wa msiba na maziko yatakayofanyika katika kijiji cha Usangi, Mwanga, mkoani Kilimanjaro.
The body of the late Cleopa David Msuya will be taken to his residence at Upanga for family rituals, while on Sunday, May 11th, the President of the United Republic of Tanzania, Samia Suluhu Hassan, will lead Tanzanians in a prayer service for the late Cleopa Msuya, which will be held at Karimjee grounds, Dar es Salaam City, from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. Meanwhile, on Monday, the body of the late Cleopa Msuya will be transported from Dar es Salaam to Mwanga, Kilimanjaro region for the burial.
Professor of Economics Samuel Wangwe says that former Vice President and Prime Minister Cleopa Msuya left a lasting legacy in the country's economic development. During his lifetime in leadership, he effectively implemented the national policy of socialism and self-reliance by working closely with highly skilled economic experts. Speaking to TBC, Professor Wangwe explains that in the 1970s and 1980s, Msuya was amongst the first to take part in major efforts to rescue Tanzania's economy during a time of financial crisis. He also played a central role in designing and implementing industrial policies that continue to serve as the foundation for building a middle-income economy today.
Msuya, I remember him in three main ways. One is being good in interpreting what Nyerere was standing for, to build self-reliance and to build an economy which was producing goods and services mainly to meet the basic goods of the people and to meet the intermediate inputs and capital goods which were needed by those industries, so that in the process you build self-reliance. Secondly, he had a commitment to improving management and ensuring that efficient management was being put in place to run parastatals, which were mainly dominant at that time. So he was very much in favor of human resources who would actually do this task. But third, he's a person who was committed to a lot of reading and consulting to build his own capacity to understand the economy.
He says that even after retiring from public service, Msuya continued to share his expertise in the private sector. He served as chairman of the board of directors of Tanzania Breweries Limited and contributed to the establishment of a community-owned bank in Mwanga district in the Kilimanjaro region. Minister of State, Vice President Office, Union and Environment Hamad Masauni has held bilateral meeting between Tanzania and some of European Union Commission leaders. Speaking at the meeting that was held in Copenhagen, Denmark, Masauni elaborated Tanzania's strategy in implementing climate change programs. He says Tanzania's priorities to control climate change include having a friendly environment for people to use clean cooking energy and empower organizations that coordinate carbon business in the country. Masauni says it is important for the European Union to provide financial support and technology to measure quantity of carbon. Moreover, a representative of the EU president congratulated Tanzania for its efforts in starting Carbon Center. Livestock keepers in the country have been urged to practice contemporary livestock farming, which include proper nutrition and animal immunization in order to enable Tanzanian meat to compete and secure a stable international market. Director of Mbogo Ranches, Nawid Mula, made the remarks in Dar es Salaam after handing over a 30 million shillings check as part of preparations for the 2025 Mbogo Tri-Nations Livestock Expo.
That's a big opportunity for them to access an event, information, services, and animals that would otherwise not be available in our country, but we've managed to bring them here. So that's one very big benefit for them. But more importantly, they'll be able to benefit from good genetics of animals, both goats, sheep, and cattle, and they'll be able to improve their own breeds to have more efficient and more productive breeds of animals.
On the other hand, the head of the agribusiness department from NMB Bank, Nsolo Mlozi, says their participation in the exhibition will provide an opportunity for livestock farmers to obtain capital to develop the livestock sector.
But also we're bigger, that are exporting to other countries. As what we explained earlier, Tanzania is the second largest country in Africa that has a lot of herds in terms of livestock. But the only challenge we've been having is the livestock that we're keeping cannot compete in the world market. So as NMB, together with partners, including Mbogo Ranches, we are working together to see the best we can help, the best to support, the best to do for the better, that we can get money, we can support our communities, we can support our farmers and livestock keepers in the country.
The exhibition is being held in the country for the third time this year, involving livestock farmers from 3 countries in Africa, including Tanzania, Kenya, and Namibia. The Deputy Minister of State, President's Office for Planning and Investment, Stanislaus Nyongo, says the government will continue to strategize initiatives that will enable it to increase revenue so as to improve Tanzania's economy. Speaking at the first tax symposium, Nyongo promises to take note of all key points that will be discussed during the symposium for the wider interests of improving tax collection in Tanzania.
The government anticipates that this symposium, by bringing together a broader spectrum of stakeholders, including academics, researchers, tax professionals, business leaders, and members of public, will engage in meaningful dialogue and generate actionable recommendations aimed at enhancing voluntary tax compliance and broadening the national tax base. I urge the symposium's secretariat to ensure that all outcomes and recommendations are compiled and submitted properly to the relevant authorities for consideration and implementation. As leaders, we reaffirm our commitment to act upon these recommendations once they reach our offices.
On the other hand, the Commissioner General of Tanzania Revenue Authority, TRA, Yusuf Mwenda, urges influencers and digital business operators to register their businesses in order to improve tax collection, while the Rector of the Institute of Tax Administration, Professor Isaiah Jairo, promises to engage more tax stakeholders.
The symposium is one of the important platforms and will help TRA to get ideas that will be used to increase the efficiency of the entire tax collection exercise. There are so many challenges in tax collection, including small number of registered businesses and a huge number of informal sectors. So we need new ideas that will help to solve these challenges. We will continue to provide education, especially for taxpayers, through engagement symposium like this. We are looking forward to host more events so that to have a number of ideas which can enhance capability of tax collection and improving Tanzanians' economy.
Now, before we wind up local news, let's have a look at today's exchange rates according to the Bank of Tanzania, BOT. And in international news, President Hakainde Hichilema of Zambia has called for integration of economies in Africa as building blocks to the full implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area. President Hichilema says regional trade blocks should build common standards to dismantle rigidities that slow down intra-African trade. Masauso Mukwayaya reports from Zambia.
African Continental Free Trade Area, AfCFTA, is on the brink of transforming Africa into the world's largest trade bloc, connecting 1.4 billion people across 55 countries with a combined GDP of $3.4 trillion. Zambia has taken center stage by hosting the inaugural AfCFTA Digital Trade Forum, a platform to fast-track the dream of a united, borderless African market. Opening the forum in Lusaka, President Hakainde Hichilema called for the need to integrate African economies as the foundation for fully realizing the AfCFTA vision.
SADC, East African Community, West African Community, Sahel, North Africa, these must fall in line through issues such as common standards, regulations, laws that we need to address. We need you, the ministers, to checklist these rigidities clearly. And for the ministers to do that, their staff, the permanent secretaries, the directors in the ministries must quickly provide this matrix of issues.
Meanwhile, the president of Botswana, Duma Boko, echoed the call for greater connectivity, particularly in internet access, to empower citizens and drive the digital revolution.
We need to bring down barriers, boundaries, and barricades. We need to enable these people to trade with and amongst each other. We need to facilitate them in those endeavors. We therefore must build for them the requisite infrastructure, the digital infrastructure that is so desperately needed to take these amenities straight to them.
And
on that note, we're ending our news bulletin for tonight, but do not miss our next bulletin in Kiswahili at 11 p.m. I am Faitha Ngaga. Good night.